What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM here. Guys, I am back for a new video. Of course, this is not a video to be taken lightly. This is a video in response to a lot of the things that I'm seeing online in regards to 343 Industries and the future of Halo and Halo Infinite. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into some of the things that have come out the last few days, guys, and go over what this actually means for the franchise, because I'm seeing a lot of misinformation out there. I'm seeing a lot of people destroying 343 and maybe not pointing the blame at the right people. I'm looking at you, Chris Raygun. But anyways, let's go ahead and move into the first part of the news here, where Microsoft officially announced that they were laying off 10,000 employees by, I believe, April of this year, maybe March. But they officially announced this and said that 343 would be losing some staff as well, which has reportedly been roughly 1/3 of their staff. And reportedly, much of this is the campaign team from Halo Infinite. I think there's many reasons for this, but let me just talk about why this is happening. This is happening because Microsoft is saying there's some sort of recession that's going to be hitting soon. So they're trying to lessen the impact on their business, essentially. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do or anything like that. That's just like an explanation of what's going on at Microsoft. So it does suck to have the campaign staff laid off, and very much myself and a lot of the Halo community had a very strong reaction to this when it was first announced. I hate this in terms of this means we aren't getting any campaign content for probably a very long time at this point. And that sucks because campaign means a lot to me personally. Campaign is something that I cherish more than maybe even more so than multiplayer, which I love multiplayer. I play it all the time. But yeah, I think it's important for us to look back at this and say, why is this happening? 343 essentially finished Halo Infinite's campaign at the 11th hour. Joe Staten was brought in I believe, October of 2020. And that was essentially for him to come in and say, all right, we need to get this game to the finish line. We got to get this campaign out the door. So he was brought in to finish that. Joe Staten has also left 343 as part of this news, but he hasn't left Microsoft. He was just moved back to the Xbox publishing team, which a lot of people had strong reactions to, myself included, because I think Joe is nothing but good for the Halo fans and community and everything else for 343. So it does suck that Joe is moving away, but I understand why he is. This was always a temporary thing. Microsoft announced when this first happened in October of 2020. They said that Joe was temporarily coming to 343 to help them out with Halo Infinite. So it does make sense that he's going back. Again, not that I agree with it, but it makes sense. So yeah, there's that piece of it as well. Obviously, with the campaign team basically being wiped out, essentially, that means we aren't getting a campaign from 343 for probably a significant amount of time, which, if you go by what they said originally for Halo Infinite, that already lines up anyways, because they said Halo Infinite was going to be a 10-year experience. We were just hoping that there would be campaign DLC that would be a part of that 10-year experience. Now it appears as though that is not the case, which sucks, completely sucks. I don't want to sugarcoat that. But it does make sense when you think about why they're laying off their campaign staff because of their staffing issues at Microsoft. It's something that they are essentially saying, hey, we're taking a break from campaign right now. We're going to have to rebuild that team moving forward. And it's not something uncommon for the game industry to do. You look at your studio, you downsize after a project releases, and you slowly build that team back up as you work towards your next big project, which may not be for a while for 343 if they continue support of Halo Infinite and it continues to do well. But again, all of that being said, not that I agree with that, because like I said, I love campaign. I love the experience. I wish that we were getting more of that and more expansions and stuff like that. It's just, this is more me thinking at it as a from a logical perspective rather than a emotional perspective. Also want to dive into a little bit here in the same regard. There are many former 343 employees that are coming out to talk about the poor management of the studio in the past. One of those examples is at HeyTread on Twitter. It's Tyler Owens, which I have been a pretty big fan of Tyler's for a while. He was at 343 for Halo 5's launch and everything else. But he puts, as a Halo fan, I'm really tired of Microsoft business practices and policies slowly killing the thing I love. Between the contracting policies they abuse for tax incentives and layoffs in the face of gigantic profits and executive bonuses, they set Halo up for failure. And that's, again, another point as to like people pointing the blame at the wrong people. Like, we'll talk about here in a little bit something that I think is just disgusting coming from Chris Raygun. But there's a very important difference and distinction between criticizing a studio and criticizing a studio's management. They are two completely different things. Let's stop lumping them together because they are not the same thing. So yes, I very much am appreciative that Tyler tweeted this out so we can get like kind of a glimpse into what was happening at 343 at that time. We also have Patrick Wren, who also is a former 343 person. He works at Respawn now on Star Wars Jedi Survivor. He says the layoffs at 343 shouldn't have happened and Halo Infinite should be in a better state. The reason for both of those things is incompetent leadership up top during Halo Infinite development, causing massive stress on those working hard to make Halo the best it can be. It's very interesting, like both of their comments directing at the top of management. What does that mean? For a long time, I did not want to criticize Bonnie Ross without knowing what's going on. We didn't know what was happening. I have a friend, Gage, if you're watching this, he often said that, well, it's Bonnie Ross. I'm like, well, we don't know that. This, I think, illustrates very specifically that it's Bonnie Ross and like some people below that, which I can go over here in a second as well. Bonnie Ross, obviously at the top, had some major dysfunction. She did not know how to manage the studio. That's very clear from some of the shortcomings we had. There's been some great stuff from 343 too that people seem to forget about, or people seem to overlook or not even care about in the wake of all of this coming out. You know, Halo 4's campaign, very well regarded by the entire, most of the community, not the entire, I don't want to say the entire. Halo 5's multiplayer, well regarded by many people. That game's fantastic. I loved Halo 5's multiplayer. Halo Infinite's campaign was fantastic. I mean, yes, the story was very basic, but the actual open world worked very well. All of the stuff in the open world were great. I absolutely love that campaign. Multiplayer, also fantastic gameplay. Absolutely fantastic gameplay. Where they were shortcomed was the game types, the feature sets like Forge being missing at launch, and they were also lacking in their post-launch support. And again, those are things that were failings of management, not a failing of the studio itself, the people in the actual, trenches making the game. Chris Lee is another one that I point the blame at 1,000%. He was essentially forced out of 343 back in September of 2020 before Joe Staten was brought in and Pierre Hintz was brought in to co-lead Infinite the rest of the way. And that's very important because Chris Lee was literally the head of Halo Infinite's development. He was the one in charge. There was people on Twitter that I also found saying that some upper level management was saying things like F you, do your job, like in regards to people questioning certain things that they were doing. There were many reports about Halo Infinite being a hero shooter at first, and that's just not what Halo is. And I'm sure there's tons of people inside of 343 telling management this is not what people want. This is not what the fans want. And finally, thankfully, they did make a change, and Chris Lee was out, and they brought Joe and Pierre Hintz in, which is when they restructured the multiplayer. So they had essentially a year to change all of that, which is not an easy task. So again, it's as these guys are saying, it comes down to management issues. It's not as if 343 is not a talented studio or there's not talented people there. It is a problem of management. Very different things. When we're criticizing 343, you're criticizing those people at the bottom. You aren't criticizing the people at the top. If you want to criticize the people at the top, you know their names. Call them out. Bonnie Ross, Chris Lee. I mean, you know these names. Why are you pointing and saying 343, you're terrible, this is trash? That's not a productive or good conversation, because you're pointing at the developers that are working their asses off day in and day out. And that's not fair. That is not fair to those developers that spend so much time pouring their love and effort into Halo. They probably see their coworkers more than they see their family, and you're going to go ahead and just destroy them because the games that are coming out aren't living up to your standard. There's reasons for that. Look at the logical reasons, the facts. Every piece of fact is important in the entire narrative of 343. You shouldn't be pointing and saying, hey, this game is absolute dog shit, you guys suck, 343. That's not a productive conversation. So anyways, that's just a little bit I wanted to add there. So anyways, a day later, we get a Reddit post that comes out reportedly detailing the future of 343 Industries. Now, this is the point where I went to a place where I was just questioning what was going on and questioning what the future meant for Halo, because I thought this report was accurate and there was a lot of people talking about it. So I was like, man, this really sucks. So I'll just talk about a little bit of it. I'm not going to go over all of it, and there's a reason for that here in a second. But essentially, this blog post said, from Reddit, said a small team with the support of Mr. Staten had worked out and then proposed the possible plans for the continuation of Master Chief 117's adventure, with several short DLCs for Infinite, leading to a major expansion of the game through a new campaign within it. The new management team at 343 had created another assessment of the campaign and the single-player narrative content offered by Halo Infinite following the departure of Bonnie Ross. Unfortunately, against the latter and rather in favor of the multiplayer part, single-player narrative content has proven difficult to produce in recent years, does not offer strong player retention, doesn't allow for viable monetization for studio and team sustainability, so the decision is not to continue the production of narrative single-player content for Halo Infinite or for Halo in general at this time. Given the financial expectations that Halo Infinite failed to meet, 343 was forced to act. These layoffs are the result of several factors: Microsoft's overall preparation for a possible recession, the studio's high operating costs for not meeting financial goals, multiplayer-focused strategy for the future of Halo Infinite, and essentially what they go to say is 343 will not disappear, but the game development part of the studio will. Thus, the projects and future of the studio lie in a two-point strategy: coordinate Halo Infinite's follow-up and give the Halo license to other studios. So essentially what this blog post was saying is the death of 343 was imminent, essentially, at some point. Like, this was saying the writing's on the wall. 343 is eventually going to go away in terms of game development. It said they were trying to frame it as though 343 was going to just essentially hand out licenses for Halo and say, hey, do you want to make this? Do you want to make this for a very small team? I believed this at first because there was a lot of people talking about this and there was a lot of discussion around this. And I was very worried because I've said it numerous times before. There is no one that cares about Halo more than the people that work at 343. Those people literally work there because they love Halo. They wouldn't work there if they didn't love Halo because they know what they're working on all the time. They know that they're not going to get the deviate or do anything else. They're working on Halo. And again, people want to lump the production of 343 and their employees and management all in the same thing, and they're all different discussions. People need to understand that. But it is fascinating that this came out and then kind of got, shot down a little bit later, and as I'll go into that now. So then Jason Schreier from business something. Anywho, Jason Schreier and Jez Corden both were disputing the post, saying that most of the information is wrong or just pure speculation. So Jason said, I ran these bullet points by a few people. While it's true that 343 is focused on multiplayer, the stuff about campaign DLC being scrapped is false. I don't think there was much of that planned in the first place. And a lot of this is either wrong or just speculation. So again, he's stating these leaks were completely fabricated, essentially. And yeah, the DLC that was being scrapped apparently wasn't even being planned, which I do find that a little bit surprising because there were leaks surrounding like names of the Endless, for instance, as a possible expansion or whatever. But maybe that was just planning on Microsoft's behalf to like get that license or get that attribute. I don't know. Maybe they're just looking to make sure that they get that license if they were to go down that path. So that doesn't necessarily make anything any different there. But then we also got from Jez Corden, just boosting this for visibility from a little while ago. From what I've heard via multiple sources, Halo Infinite's campaign DLC never existed beyond conversations. So there you go. If they were looking to get that, trademark for the Endless just from conversations they had, that makes sense. The focus has been entirely on their live service. There you go. And that's backing up exactly what Jason Schreier says, and it makes sense to me because why their live content was in a bad place. Like, I'm sure they had all hands on deck getting their live content back to where it needs to be, and that's why we're on the path to getting Season 3 as essentially the relaunch for this game. Of course, all of this negative press is going to surround Season 3's launch, I'm sure, and I'm sure there's just going to be more people coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, this game's trash, this game's dead, all of this. Fact of the matter is they've turned around their studio in terms of live service to get us back to a point where Halo Infinite is getting consistent, good quality content over time. And I think we will finally get that in March when Season 3 launches. So yeah, that was interesting. And then all that came out. I was finally optimistic that, things aren't as bad as people are, portraying them to be. Obviously, it still sucks about the campaign team getting let go. I do think that this does open up a lot of opportunities for 343 to work with other studios, though. I think there's a lot of great studios out there that could make some cool Halo stories. Not necessarily the mainline games, because 343 is obviously going to continue doing that, but there's a lot of cool stuff you can do in that universe. So it definitely doesn't leave it outside the possibility that we could get other content in the Halo universe from other studios. I think that would be really cool to get more of that stuff. Halo Wars is a great example of that. Fantastic. I love Halo Wars 2 and Halo Wars 1. But yeah, I think we'll see more of that going forward. And then a day after all of this happened, we finally got a comment from 343 officially. where this is Pierre Hintz, who is now the studio head of 343, with Joe leaving to go back to Xbox Publishing. He says, Halo and Master Chief are here to stay. 343 Industries will continue to develop Halo now and in the future, including epic stories, multiplayer, and more of what makes Halo great. And that's the thing, like, where do we go from here? Pierre cares about this game. Pierre cares about this franchise. As long as Pierre is there, I think we're in good shape. Like, I'm not going to ignore everything that just happened. As I've said, there's so many things that I'm very disappointed and sad about. But like, this man cares about Halo. This man is quite literally the reason why the Master Chief Collection was fixed and continues to get really good quality updates. Like, people don't want to talk about the Master Chief Collection, but this man is literally the reason why that game turned out at the end of the day to be a good game. And we have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that. 343 is finally getting management that is suitable for its great staff, and that's important. That is very important for the future of this franchise, for the future of Halo Infinite. Yes, again, I don't agree that Joe necessarily had to go for that, Joe Staten, but I'm not going to throw my hands up and say, oh, this is screwed. 343's fucked it up again. We're screwed now. Like, that's not what's happening here. Use facts, use the factual information, and tell your own story. And that is what I'm mainly getting at here. Tell your own story. And one of the things that really pisses me off is when people want to throw shade. For instance, Pierre made this statement, and instantly, who do you get responding? You get all the toxicity and all the toxic people that want to respond, like Chris Raygun, for instance, who responds to this post saying, oh, fifth time's the charm. Really? Really, bro? Because they've made great quality campaign content, Halo 4 and Halo Infinite. They've made great quality multiplayer in Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. Yes, again, post-launch issues aside, those are two completely different things. And as we already talked about, those are not issues with the quality of the team. It is issues with the quality of the management at that time and at those times. We have moved past that. We are on to a different time. We are in a different time. Let's not throw shade at game developers who, again, work their asses off every fucking day. I'm so sick of people who think that they know better than these game developers that literally love Halo. Please stop. You are not doing anything productive or positive by saying these things. If you don't want to enjoy Halo, then stop playing the games and stop commenting on them, because no one wants to see that. No one wants to see you trying to destroy the average game developer who is literally fucking slaving away on this game. So stop. Stop with the hate. I am sick of it. And I did respond to Chris Raygun, and he went back and forth with me on this. And I'm not gonna be apologetic for being aggressive towards people like this, because you are making people's lives worse by responding in this way. You are literally negatively affecting how many game developers who see this post and see you commenting on this with your toxic ass garbage. How many people you think are affected by that? Don't fucking do it. There's no reason. You can have a constructive and critical comment without being destructive and toxic. That's unacceptable. We should not accept that as a society. We should not accept that as a community of gamers. So, yeah. That's it, guys. I know it was a long one, and if you stuck it out with me, I appreciate it. But yeah, be better, everyone, because I'm so tired of seeing all the toxicity and negativity. Constructive criticism is the answer, not toxic bullshit. Anyways, See you guys next time, and thank you again.